his reputation. Let's bring in Marshawn Evans. She's the president of Edge 3M Sports and Entertainment and Reinvention Strategist. Marshawn, from an image point of view, how do you think he did yesterday?
You know, I think that what we started to see was a new Tiger Woods, a personal Tiger Woods, someone that wasn't as scripted, somebody who was actually human and maybe not perfect. And so we started to see what we're going to need to see for him to reintegrate himself back into the hearts and minds of the fans who have loved him for so long. And I think that he did a very good job. You know, what he's doing is taking baby steps, and that's really what you have to do in a crisis management situation.
What do you think of the timing of the interview and him granting the interview just weeks before the Masters?
That's a great question. I think that Ari Fleischer, the press advisor for Tiger Woods now, really earned his worth yesterday in timing this interview to take place during healthcare reform. Who does an interview at 7:30 p.m. on a Sunday to talk about re-entering a sport when they've been away for a while? Only Tiger Woods, who has Ari Fleischer as his advisor. And so this was done strategically. You know, healthcare reform was being introduced, but I do think it was still the right move. He had a very short segment with you all and also with the Golf Channel, only 5 minutes, but there were a lot of questions. There were over a dozen questions that were asked during that time period, and he got to touch on a lot of things, and I think he showed a lot of himself, which is, I can't emphasize enough, that's really what's going to be most important here.
You said he sounded more personable, more human. What
Yes.
actually stood out to you? What did he say that stood out to you the most, though?
You know, the phrase that probably stood out to me, well, there were a couple of things, but the one phrase that really stood out to me was when the interviewer on ESPN talked about how he would be received by the fans. And he said, I hope that I get a couple of claps. It would be nice to have a few. And so for someone who has been an iconic global athlete, the most recognized face and celebrated athlete in recent history, to say, I hope I get a few claps, I think that shows a very humble person. You know, what also was interesting to me was his body language and that his arms were very closed in. I thought that he showed a lot of humility. I think he also showed some nervousness and uncertainty. But at the end of the day, Tiger Woods really controlled that interview, and he didn't let it go in a direction that he wasn't ready to talk about. So although he was very prepared and he was very polished, I didn't find that it was scripted. I think it was exactly what he needed at this stage.
So if you're consulting him, if you're helping him with his image, when he gets back out on the course at the Masters, what are you telling him about his body language and how he interacts with those fans?
I think the most important thing is for him to be aware of how he is coming across. And I wouldn't say to be intentional about anything in particular, but to really just be aware of how certain things will come across. You know, one of the things that was different with the interview that was on the Golf Channel as opposed to the interview that was with you all on ESPN is that he referred to Kelly as Kel. And he was very, he used a nickname, essentially. And I think he's got to be very careful with that. One thing that Tiger Woods has got to be very cognizant of is his interactions with women moving forward. And I think that's why the interview with you all was very different than the interview with Kelly, or Kel, as Tiger has affectionately called her. That's a dangerous move, and I think that's why the tone of that interview was very different than the tone of the interview with ESPN. And so he's got some assessments, but no interview is going to be perfect. The one thing I do want to emphasize, when you're in a crisis management situation, the goal is not perfection, the goal is progress, and he is making progress. I believe that slow motion is better than no motion, and he is in the right direction.
Tom Rinaldi did an outstanding job in the 5-minute time limit that he had with him. Is there more that we need to see from Tiger? Where does he go from here? Does he need to go on Oprah and get it all out and then expand it interview? Or maybe not Oprah because he might call her O, I don't know. I mean...
It's a good point. It's a good point. You know, I wouldn't go on Oprah unless you had a new book to produce. If he went on a show like Oprah, I think that's a situation where he would definitely want to bring his wife, and that would be a completely different purpose. Right now, I think Tiger's focus needs to be on helping himself and making sure that his life is in order so that he can be the best husband, the best father that he can be, and then he can be a great superstar athlete again if he is right with himself. Furthermore, I think that he needs to focus on what he's going to do in the community. I think he needs to continue to focus on his media training. Those things are going to be very important, but they're not the most important. As much as you at ESPN want to talk to him and media stations around the world, it's not the most important thing in his life right now. The most important thing in his life is his wife and his children. And he needs to continue to focus on that. And one other thing that I really want to emphasize here is this man loves the game of golf. He would not be coming back if he didn't feel like he could just do a good job, but that he could dominate on the golf course. So that's why we're about to see Tiger Woods in a few weeks. And what he's doing now is he's tiptoeing into this pond of water that he's going to have to swim in. And he is doing so in a very strategic way. You may want to hear more, but that's only because you want to get the juicy details. Right, Mike?
Yeah, well, that's what we try and get around here. That's what we do. It's our job. Thank you so much for your insight and your great knowledge. And maybe even Tiger's listening and he might want to, might pay attention. Who knows? Marshawn Evans hanging out with us here on ESPN News. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.